All right. So, the most powerful times of the moon are not, in my experience, the way that it's always taught. I know everybody says the full moon is the most powerful, but I don't find that that's the case. For me, what works, and again, you're going to find what works for yourself, but for me, the new moon is the most powerful. And when I say the new moon, I'm talking about the time after the actual, what they call the new moon in the calendar, in the astrological calendars. That is technically the dark moon, when it's absolutely dark, when you can't see any moon in the sky. So for me, a new moon is usually the second day after the calendar's new moon. You can technically do new moon magic any time after that new moon, but not before. So if the astrological calendar states that on August 12th, it's going to be a new moon at 7:22 a.m. Technically, you can do waxing moon energy at 7:23 or whatever I said. 1 minute after that. But I like to do it where I can see the very first visible crescent moon in the sky. That's my new moon. So that's usually a day or two after what they call the new moon. I call that the dark moon. And I don't do any magic on the dark moon, waning or waxing. I have a break. And believe it or not, other than if it's a religious thing, if I'm doing a religious ceremony, I will not do magic on the full moon either. That's a break time for me. So new moons and full moons are my actual break time, or the dark moon and the full moon. Okay, the new moon, so the second day after that dark moon, or what they call the new moon in the calendar, that's my most powerful time. So if I want to do a spell, a Venus spell, I will do that spell usually on the first Friday after the new moon. That's my main waxing time, is that time. Now, for the banishings, I like to start my banishings the first planetary day after the first or second day of the full moon. I like to wait until there's a little bit of time after it's full, usually a day or two, and then I'll start my waning moon magic. That's my second most powerful time, and it's for waning. As the moon gets into the first quarter and the third quarter are my favorite times. The second quarter and the fourth quarter are okay times, but they're to me, those are the second most powerful times. So the first quarter and the third quarter, so the first waxing phase and the first waning phase are the most powerful. The second waning phase and the second waxing phase are the least powerful, but you can still use them. But I personally do not do any magic on the dark moon, and I rarely do magic on the full moon. I just don't find that I don't like it. It doesn't work for me. You may find that that's different for you. And I know that goes counter to what everybody teaches. But when I started following that rule decades ago, things really made a difference. And I stopped doing all that dark moon magic and full moon magic, and things I made better strides. Okay. So when you are planning your spells now, you're going to see that I have included a planetary hours handout on your handouts, and that's available if you want to log on. You can look at it right now. Because somebody had asked about planetary substitutions, and we're going to get into that today. In a perfect world, you will use the planet that you will use the day that is ruled by the planet, and that still goes. So try your best to work it on the right day. If you can also work it in that same planetary hour, so much the better. But if nothing else, try to do it on their day. But if you can't, it's okay, because you can do it on another day in the right planetary hour. But there are certain days that certain planets don't seem to do well. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But before we do that, before we talk about substitutions, let's just talk about planetary hours. Planetary hours are not astrological. They are mystical. They are traditional. They are very powerful, but the planetary hours have nothing to do with what's going on in the sky. They have everything to do with the archetypal clock. And you will notice that there are several planetary hours systems that give different results, which lead people to think that the planetary hours systems are obsolete and that they are meaningless, and that could not be further from the truth. Because when you start working with planetary hours, you are plugging in to a very powerful and ancient tradition. And in fact, the more effort that you can put into it, the better. In magic, and in the system that I use and that I'm giving you here, a magical day begins at sunrise, not at midnight. So if sunrise is at 6:02 a.m., if I'm looking at Sunday and I look in my almanac and it says sunrise today is 6:02 a.m., then I don't do a sun ritual until after 6:02 a.m. I don't do it on Saturday night because it's after midnight, because even though the calendar says that after midnight that's Sunday, it's not. It's not Sunday until sunrise, according to our calendar. So the magical calendars start at sunrise. The magical days start at sunrise, not at midnight. Now, there are different ways to figure out planetary hours, and some of them are very complex. The system I use is not complex, and it's equally as effective as the complex systems. And I would recommend that you use a system that does not depend upon you using somebody's app. You don't want to use an app or having somebody else's calculations, because you don't know if the app is calculated correctly. You want to be able to have at your disposal your planetary hours. So the way we use it, and the system that we use, is that each hour is still 60 minutes long. Now, there's other systems that actually will have separate planetary hours for daytime and separate planetary hours for nighttime. They will calculate the time between sunrise and sunset and divide those hours, that time into the appropriate amount of hours, and then calculate the planetary hours based on those calculations. And those systems work beautifully, but they don't work any more beautifully than using the system that we have, which is just that there's 60 minutes in an hour. So you'll notice, if you're looking at the planetary hours, that there's a chart, and you'll see that there is an order in the planets. And it goes from left to right across the page, just like the days of the week. And then it changes a little bit on the second hour and the third hour and the fourth hour. And those hours are very traditional. They're very traditional arrangements of the planets based on the Kabbalistic spheres And so if you're not into Kabbalah, it's okay. You can still use this. We've been using this, witches have been doing this forever, and it works beautifully. What you want to do is, if you are looking at the list, you'll notice that on Sunday, the first hour from sunrise till the second hour of the day. So let's say the sun rose at 6:15. So from 6:15 to 7:15, it's ruled by that first hour, and that's ruled by the sun. The second hour would be from 7:15 to 8:15. That's ruled by Venus. 8:15 to 9:15, ruled by Mercury, and so on and so on and so on down the list. Some days, Sunday always starts with the sun. Monday always starts with the moon. Tuesday always starts with Mars. So the first hour of the day is always the hour of the day that is sacred to the planet that is sacred to that day. And then it goes into that same exact order over and over and over again. The rota continues around and around and around the same way. So if you want to use a substitute day, you have to look on the first page of that planetary hours sheet. It shows you which days to avoid. For instance, it tells you that the sun works well on every day but Saturday. So avoid solar spells on Saturday. So if you wanted to do a sun spell, but you knew you were going to be out of town on Sunday, you could do Monday in the 5th hour, or you could do Monday in the 12th hour, or you could do Monday in the 19th hour after sunrise. If you knew you wanted to do a sun spell on Thursday, you could start your spell on Thursday in the 3rd hour after sunrise. You could start your spell on Thursday in the 10th hour after sunrise. You could start your spell on Thursday in the 17th hour after sunrise. You just have to, it's not a hard calculation. You just have to know, you just have to count 17 hours after sunrise. You look it up in the almanac, or you look it up online. Sun rose in my location where I live at 6:15 a.m. So I have to count from 6:15 a.m. hours to whatever hour I'm looking for, and that's when I do my spell. Who is confused at what I'm talking about? Let's fix this. Because this can be a little confusing at first if you're not used to using planetary hours. No? Okay. So, like it says here, on the moon, obviously you can do your moon work on Monday. That's preferable. But you can do doing moon hours on any day but Tuesday and Saturday. She doesn't like to work on Tuesdays and Saturdays. It's not her. Those aren't her days. She doesn't combine well with Mars and Saturn energies. On mostly, you're going to notice that it's Tuesdays and Saturdays that they don't like. But Mars works great on Tuesday, but he doesn't like Mondays or Saturdays. Mercury works on any day because he's the messenger of the gods, basically. So Mercury works on any day. So you can work during the Mercury hour on any day if you have to. But still, it's best if you can still do it on Wednesday, even so. But if you need a substitute, you can do it any day as long as it's during a Mercury hour. Jupiter, if you can't do it Thursday, then do on any day but Saturday. Venus, she likes to work on any day but Saturday as well. Saturn works on pretty much Saturday and Wednesday. So Saturn is a tough one to substitute. He doesn't like to work on anything but his own day, but he'll work on Mercury's day because Mercury works well with anybody. So Saturn's kind of a loner. Mars is a bit of a loner, but Mars doesn't even like to work with Saturn that much. So, but these are traditional restrictions that I would recommend that you work with because they really do make a difference. In a pinch, you could do anything with anything, obviously, but try to honor the planetary not personalities, correspondences as much as possible. All right. So when we're doing this next spell, I'm asking you for in your homework to do your best to do an attracting spell on around the new moon, sometime within that first quarter, if possible. Not the dark moon, but the new moon. So that's going to be, the first visible crescent in the sky, or maybe a day or two after the dark moon. Although technically, any time after that dark moon is technically waxing. So you're going to find your goal on your goal sheet from week 1, and I want you to take your find a goal that you have. Remember, you rated everything. So I want a goal that you rated 8 or above on your desire scale. So something you want at least 8 or above on your desire scale, and somewhere between 7 and 9 on your sphere of influence. Don't bother with a 10, because a 10 you could just go and do it. So that's not going to be flexing any magical muscles. But you don't want to make it so far out of your sphere of influence that you lose faith when, if it's too hard for you to get. So somewhere between 7 and 9 on what you think is your sphere of influence. So that's what I want you to do, is find a goal to work on this next week. And what you're going to do is you're going to be building a thought form. And there's many ways to build thought forms, and we will work on thought forms a lot, not only in this class, but in future classes. But the way we're building a thought form in the basic spell, and this spell works really, really, really well. And I love this way of working spell works. And I do it probably 95% of my time. I'll do it like this. I find the goal. I write out all the details of what I want. I get as detailed as I can. If it's a thing, I want to know what color, what everything I want with it, as detailed as I can. And then I want to find out what the essence of my goal is. In other words, what is it going to do for me? What qualities will it bring me? What will it do for me emotionally? So if it's a spell for a job, you don't necessarily, when I say I want you to be specific, you don't necessarily have to name a company, but you want to be specific as to what your salary range is, what field you want to be in, what kind of hours you want to be working, what part of the country you want to work in, how close to home you want it to be. All of that stuff, what the general culture of the company is that you're working for, do they what the insurance benefits are, all of that stuff. You want to be as clear as you can, and then once you're clear on the pragmatic side of things, which could be, that could take you a day just to come up with that if you haven't really thought about it yet. But then you want to ask yourself, well, what will this job bring me on another level, on an emotional level? It'll make me feel maybe secure. It'll bring me joy, maybe. It'll bring me a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging, a sense of opulence, a sense of abundance. What are the essences that are associated with this goal? So not only do you want the specifics of what you think you want, but you want the essence of what you think you want. Does that make sense? Okay. Once you know what you want, you have to come up with, and this is all also written out in your homework, so you don't have to worry about it. You have to come up with an idea of how would you know that this happened. So maybe this is a visual cue that you know that it worked after the fact. Maybe it's that you get a phone call from your mother congratulating you on your new job. And she says, "Isn't that exciting?" Or maybe you're shaking hands with a boss, or maybe somebody gave you a congratulations party, or something like that. Find out, how would you know that this happened? What would this little scene or this little action, if you saw this, it would be obvious that your goal had already come true. So I don't want you to see the goal coming true. I want you to see something that indicates that it already came true. And it should be a short enough little vignette that you can loop it over and over and over in your mind. I call that your visualization loop. So you want a little visualization loop that you can go over and over and over again in your mind. Whether or not you think you can visualize, I don't care whether you think you can visualize it. You still want to know what that thing is so that you can pretend that you're visualizing it over and over in your mind when you're doing your spell. It's one of the most important aspects of this whole thing is to get that little visual cue in your mind that proves to you that it has already happened, that you can see over and over and over again. And you only have to repeat it and loop it for a couple minutes at the most. Now, as with all of the recordings that I give you, and there's a recording for this as well, it's hard for me to give you a recording that is perfect for you, because some people like to go a little bit more quickly. Some people need to take some more time. So the pacing that I've chosen is to be fast enough that it doesn't drag and that people do it, but slow enough that you get the work done. After you learn how this works, don't feel like you have to be tethered to these recordings. You are absolutely more than welcome to do it on your own. You don't need the recording, but use the recording the first or second time at least so that you can get a sense of the process. Okay? And then if you want to keep using the recordings, there's nothing wrong with it either, but don't feel like that you're, I don't want you to feel like you have to use these recordings. So now, as I said before, you do not have to use an altar. You do not have to use candles. You do not have to use oils. You do not have to use incenses. These are options that we find help to augment spells. So you could get all of this work done with just your sheet of paper that had all of the goal well defined and all the essences, and that's it. And then the recording. That's enough. But if you want to do your altar, you start maybe using an altar cloth with the right color, planetary color, or a placemat or whatever you're using, or whatever. You want to get a candle that represents as close to the auric attractive color as possible. I'm sorry if I've missed any questions. If you're as close to the auric attractive color as possible. It doesn't have to be exact, so don't worry about it if you can't find the exact color. But get to as close as you can so it's representing, what your goal. You want to anoint the candle. If nothing else, anoint it with just the olive oil and salt. That's absolutely fine. That's a perfect anointing oil. You never need anything fancy. Just a little bit of olive oil and a little pinch of salt. Shake it together, stick it on your altar. You're good to go. You're good to go for the rest of your life until you need to refill it. But if you want to do a planetary oil, that's fine. You can either use the full-on recipe if you're really interested in getting that involved with it. It's not more powerful. It's just a lot of us like that. Or just use 1 or 2 or 3 ingredients out of that formula or another oil that you feel works well with that planetary energy. Don't feel, again, tethered to my correspondences and my recipes. These are just examples. Same thing goes with the incense. Somebody asked about incense, but what if we want the smoke? Well, absolutely have smoke. There's nothing wrong with smoke. People use smoky incense all the time. I just don't like it. I don't like it when it burns too hot. It doesn't smell pretty. It smells like smoke. The smoke alarms go off. I just don't like it. I just don't love it. But when I'm smudging, I'll definitely want some smoke when I'm purifying, but then I put it out. And so you can do the hot charcoal with the full on incense if you want big billowy smoke. That's fine. Or you can use one of the alternate methods that I'm suggesting, where you can have a diffused heat so that you're burning the incense with less direct heat, so you get a better smell, but you won't get as much smoke. But any kind of fume in the air will still represent the air element. Absolutely. So, you can get your altar nice and set up. I like the 2 white altar taper candles or pillar candles in the back. I like a representative of each element on my altar. I like the colored candle representing my spell, and then just the paper with all my my goal in front of it. And you can, if you want to, cast a circle. It's not necessary, but if you want to cast a circle, it oftentimes will increase the power of your focus and effectiveness. So feel free to cast a circle as per the Witch's Primer and also the outline that I've included. But if you don't have the time or the inclination or the desire to, you can still do it without it. Absolutely. When you're ready to go, you can either do your own little Orb of Light meditation, your own grounding and centering meditation if you want to, or you can do one of the little recordings that I've provided, or you can just go straight into the recording for the attracting spell, because it has the orb and the grounding sort of in it already. You'll notice that in this particular method of attracting, and I say the word attracting because there's not a better word for it. You're becoming attractive to the energy that you're wanting. It's not necessarily that you're attracting it, it's not like law of attraction in that way. It's more like the old-fashioned drawing to you that which you want. You're becoming magnetic to your desires. So I do recommend that you try to stick with the auric colors that I give you until you get used to them. And then if you want to do some substitutions for the planetary auric colors, you can. But these have been used for a long, long time, these auric colors for banishing and attracting. And I like them because you're not going to get into any weird trouble with them. Like a lot of times, like Saturn, a banishing color for Saturn is black. But I don't recommend that you put black in your aura. It's not an easy color to deal with when it's an auric color. I just don't recommend it. There's a lot of just like with brown, I wouldn't put a lot of brown in your aura right now. I mean, or ever. I just don't like brown in my aura. I love brown as a color, but it doesn't work with me very well in my aura. I just don't recommend it. Now, after a while, if you want to experiment with that kind of stuff, you're free to do that and see how it goes. It's not like you can't undo it if if you don't like the effects. But for now, I would kind of stick with the auric colors that I recommend to you because they're pretty safe. They're pretty all inclusive, and they do have a tradition and a history within this particular type of magic. What you'll notice is that just like with the banishing spell, we're using the auric color for attracting, and you're going to use the same device that we've been using throughout this class and throughout the Witch's Primer, which is called the Orb of Light. And it's basically an extended aura of yours, and it's a type of thought form that you're building. Every time you use it, it's a protective and an empowering thought form. But you're going to, again, you're going to, when you're starting this visualization loop on your desire, you are going to actually start to create a second orb of light around that visualization, and you're going to create another thought form. So it's going to be a little baby thought form that is going to be you're going to actually see it in front of you. And pretty soon, you're going to actually bring that thought form into your navel and house it in your navel for the rest of the operation, because that's your power center. And when we do something similar that we did before, which is where we color the orb of light with the planetary color. But whereas we had a cone of power before with the tip above, with the attracting, the cone of power, actually the tip is at your navel where your thought form is. And the base of the cone is actually, it's inverted. The base of the cone is actually encompassing the entire planet, which you're seeing in the astral directly above you. So you're actually turning that cone of power so that it becomes like a planetary magnet, so that you are drawing the planetary energies toward you. Then you'll notice that later on what we do is we take that thought form and we put it up the cone into the planet, and it turns into what I call astral substance. Eli called it proto-matter. There's a lot of different names for it. It's the same stuff that people are always talking about in fairy tales when they talk about magic dust or fairy dust. It's pixie dust. It's proto-matter. It's subatomic. It's even more than subatomic particles. It's astral substance. It's thought substance. So you're creating that thought form, and then you're allowing the planetary genius energy to arrange it into its own astral substance, which then comes back to you and it's rearranged within your own aura, in your own DNA, basically, so that you become attractive to that thing that you're looking for, that you're drawing to you. And it's very, very powerful technique, and I think you'll enjoy working with it. It's really self-explanatory once you go through it. And the cool thing about attracting is you can do the same spell over and over and over again. It's not like banishing where you just do it once. You can do it as many times as you want every day. And the other cool thing is all that you have to worry about as far as timing is day one. So if you started on a particular day in a particular planetary hour, that is the day that spell was born. Anything you do after that can be anytime you want. You don't have to, there's no need whatsoever to hit that planetary hour if you're doing the same spell. So if you want to do a 3-day spell, if you want to do a 9-day spell, if you want to do the spell for the entire waxing moon period, or if you just want to do it that one time, that's absolutely fine. Okay, but if you do repeat it, you'll get better and better and better at it, and the thought form will just keep getting fed, so that it becomes more powerful, and you get better results. So you're more than welcome to use it as many times as you like. So it's really that simple. If you're using a candle, you light your candle. You take your paper with all of your stuff on it. I recommend that you read through it before you start your meditation. Just read through that paper so you're clear on what you want. Get in your mind before you start what your little loop is, your visualization loop is, what and what your attracting orb color is. Just go into your meditation with those few little pieces of information, and it's easy. You're going to enjoy it. It's fun. Okay, so far, any other questions? I know this is a lot. I know. This stuff sounds more complicated than it is. Once you get into it, you'll see it's easy. I'm sure I'll just get all the questions on the forum because nobody likes to talk on these calls. All right. Well, feel free to interrupt me if you have a question. All right, so we've talked about how we're creating a thought form, and we're using a thought form in a very specific way, and this thought form is actually going to become part of you. It's going to become part of your aura. And so make sure that you like what you're attracting, because it's going to be part of you. And that's the fastest way to get it to you is to become a part of the energy and have that energy become a part of you.
Hi, Ariel.
Yes?
Hi, this is Gina speaking. Leo has a question, but she doesn't have a mic yet.
Okay.
So the question is, how was that order determined? She's talking about the planetary hours. Likewise, Mars after Jupiter.
Okay. Okay. Can you mute while I answer it?
Okay.
So look at your planetary hour sheet and you'll see if you go to the from left to right, you'll see that they go in order of the days of the week. So on Sunday, it's Sun, and then Moon, and then Mars, then Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn. Then the next day, the next hour starts one behind. Venus, Saturn, Sun, Moon, Mars, Mercury. It's again in the order of the days of the week, but you start back one. If you go down the vertical way, it's the there we go. The order is no longer in the days of the week. So if you want to get the order of the days of the week, you got to go from left to right. Got to go from left to right. So that's how that grid is laid out. The thing about it too is if and almost all planetary hour systems are in the same grid, regardless of how you figure out the hours. They're always in the same grid. If you use a different planetary hour system besides this one, that's fine. But what we recommend is if you find a different system that you want to try, go ahead and experiment with them if you feel like it, different systems. But once you find something that you resonate with, we recommend that you kind of stick with it. Because if you switch around from system to system to system, you're not you're not allowing yourself to have a very solid relationship with the system, and so it won't work as well for you. The vertical order came from the horizontal. The vertical order came from the horizontal. See, on the second one, Venus, Saturn, Sun, Moon, Mars, Mercury, those are still in order. They're still in order of the days of the week. That's how you get that. But you always go back one. That's just how that works. And if the vertical order does have a Kabbalistic significance, it really does. It does have a Kabbalistic significance. But you don't have to figure it out via the Kabbalah. You can just figure it out via the way you remember how to do it is the order of the days of the week. And then when you start the next hour, you go back one. So Sun, Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn. Then to start the next horizontal row, you go back one and you start with Venus. And then you go through the day, you go in the same order of the days of the week. Venus, Saturn, Sun, Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter. You go back one to Mercury and you start the next line, and on and on and on and on. That's how you can make your own grid if you ever need to. But it's a very simple way of doing it. But there is a definite Kabbalistic order vertically. Venus isn't back one where? If you go Sun, Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, Venus, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn, then the one before Saturn is Venus. That's how you're going to start. That's how you're going to start the next row is on the one behind what you ended with. Then it's Venus, Saturn, Sun, Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter. Then what do I start the next line with? The one before the one I just ended on. That would be Mercury. So the next line starts on Mercury. Then I go in the order of the days of the week. Yeah, you got it. Okay. I know it seems complicated, but it's actually very simple. And again, there is absolutely nothing astrological about this system. It's an old traditional system, but it works. It works because you're plugging into archetypes. You're not plugging into actual in the sky cosmic energies. You are plugging into archetypal cosmic energies, which are very, very powerful. All right.
Ariel.
Yes.
May I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
I have the
who's
dark
this?
moon is coming. This is Gypsy. I'm sorry.
Hi,
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm lovely. Thank you so much for doing this class.
Oh, I'm enjoying it.
I have that the dark moon begins on March 20th,
Okay.
which would be Friday,
Uh-huh.
and then we would need to start soon thereafter doing a spell.
Yes, I would probably my first day that I would consider doing a spell would be that Sunday.
Would be that Sunday. So, and that would be the day of the class.
Yeah, you could do it that night or that morning if you wanted to do a sun ritual, or you could do it on another day in a sun hour.
Would you prefer, and this is more just a practical, I know some people would rather just do what they want to do, I understand that, but would you prefer that we perhaps take one of our desires and fit it into something before then, just for practical reasons?
Not necessarily. I'd rather it be something that you really want. I would
Okay.
rather I would rather it be the thing that's the highest on the desire scale that fits in with your sphere of influence. That's what I would prefer. Now, if anything that you're going to be able to do on the new moon is going to have a little more power to it. But the first day after the new moon is pretty powerful still. The first day of planetary day. So even the first Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday after the new moon. So even though Friday is a whole week after the dark moon, it's still considered the new moon because it's within that first quarter and it's the first Friday of that. Does that make sense? Sort of. So you wouldn't want to do it on the Friday of the dark moon because that's too early.
Okay.
But
yes,
the first Friday after that would be a whole week after that. But I would still consider that new moon work because it's the first Friday after the new moon. So in this particular lunar cycle, Friday magic is not going to be quite as powerful as moon magic and sun magic and Mars magic because she's so far away from the new moon. She's basically Venus. The Friday this lunar cycle, Friday and Saturday have hid themselves in the dark moon, so they're not going to have as much new moon energy available to them because you don't want to work on the dark moon. So they're the farthest away. So you can still work wonderful magic, but you're not going to get as powerful of a new moon energy as you will if you're doing something on a Sunday or a Monday or a Tuesday. So you might, if you really want that new moon energy, consider working on another day in Venus hour if it's a Venus spell. You could do that. Very easily could do that. But if you really want to do a pure Venus spell and you don't want to mess around with extra days, then do it on Friday. And it just would be the Friday after the dark moon, not the Friday of the dark moon. That wouldn't yield the results that you're looking for. Did that just make everything more complicated than it needs to be? I hope not. All right. So the other thing that you might want to start looking at, and you don't have to look at it right now, but as you get more involved in this stuff, is look at some of the other correspondences on your list. I've given you the real basic ones on these lists. I haven't gone crazy because we could have, 10 pages on each planet easily. But start looking at maybe the metals or the gems. Start looking at the numbers. Now, so if you're doing, like a Jupiter spell, what you could do, is you could do it on Thursday or one of his other days that in the Jupiter hour and start using, some of those gemstones. You could do a lapis, or you could do if you decided to do a multiple day spell, you might consider let's do it for 4 days because that's a Jupiter number. Do a 4-day spell because Jupiter is 4. That's his number. That kind of thing. So start thinking in terms of we're not going into talismans too much yet, but that's how you're going to start making the talismans and things like that later too. Is you can ground your right now we're grounding your thought form into you because that's the most powerful way to do this kind of spell. But there's also a way to ground a part of or an entire thought form into an object, such as a gemstone or a piece of metal or a bag of herbs. So if you started to do that, you had a bag of herbs and you wanted it to be Jupiter, you could have 4 herbs in there. Or 3 herbs and a gemstone, 4 items in there, and then you could ground your thought form into that talisman to create change for you, so that way your talisman is going to be charging a particular place within, like your home or your car or that kind of thing. That's a great way for talismans, but for general goal magic, I like you to be your own talisman. I like to ground it within you because I don't want you to start thinking it's so easy to get superstitious when you start working at talismanic magic. So we don't want to think that way. We want to think in terms of the spell is actually, the thought form is grounded within me, my aura, my cells, my body, my mind, my DNA, and it's actually working nonstop for me. And you'll see a very quick response, very positive, quick response. Now, there's nothing wrong with having your spell also be related to that which you just made room for with your banishing spell. That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? So if you banished poverty and you created a vacuum, then it would be a great time to do a spell for financial abundance or wealth, that kind of thing. If you did a spell to release weight loss, this would be a great time to do a spell for, a health spell, or a healthy diet spell, or a beauty spell, or a glamorous spell, that kind of thing. Not casting a glamour, but personal, feeling glamorous, feeling fabulous, feeling luxurious. So that's another way that you could work it is make way for what you want in the waning moon, and then do something that relates to that in the waxing moon. It's not necessary, but it's a very powerful way to work. All right. Who has questions? Don't skip over this list making process for the spell. Don't just go for the thing. I want you to go for the details. I want it to be detailed, and I want the essence. If you're not clear on what it's bringing you, it's not going to be as powerful of a spell. Do yourself a favor. Do the work. Put that work into it. That is as powerful as the magical part of the work, where we're actually working with the energy. Because you're making some clarity. You're giving your mind some clarity. And you'll notice that you get what you want a lot more cleanly and quickly, and without a lot of the problems that a lot of people will associate with magic, because they didn't bother to define their goal, both on a practical level and on an energetic level. And that's why it's not that magic is causing them problems. It's because they didn't bother to do all the work and put in the time. So if you put the work in, and it's not, I mean, it's not drudgery. You're thinking about what you want. I mean, you're creating the life you want. It should be a lot of fun. I mean, you're sitting there deciding, well, what do I want? And what is that going to look like? I mean, what a great thing. It's like making your Christmas list. So be specific. Be specific. All right. I am pretty much done with this class. So this would be the time for you to ask any questions. Otherwise, we'll end the call.
Hi, Ariel. This is Jo Fei.
Hi, nice to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you. I just want to say thank you so much for this class. It's just been amazing.
Oh, my pleasure.
So this question might be out of the scope, but it just came up. So, for a while, Puck and I have been working with the astrological correspondences with the new and the full moon.
Yes.
And would you say it would be beneficial, for example, since like this is a Pisces new moon coming?
That's a good question. And I do use that, but for this planetary magic, I might put that one on the back burner just for now and work with the non-astrological correspondences so that you become well versed in it, because otherwise you start to paint yourself into a corner. If you have too many restrictions on it. I would, again, you need to do what feels right to you. And there's absolutely powerful magic that's done using the moon signs. And I do use that. But for this, I would recommend maybe considering putting that just for now, put a pin in that, and look at just working with the planetary days and hours, so that you get a relationship with that uncolored from the astrological parts of it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because otherwise it's a lot of information.
It's almost too much. It takes a lot of the fun out of it after a while, because it's like, oh gosh. The one thing I will recommend is that you never ever do magic on any eclipse day, lunar or solar. That's a rest day. It's a day of rest in magic, and that's my own tradition. That's how I was raised, and every time I've not done that, I've not had great results. If that doesn't work for you and you work really well on eclipses, that's fine. I do not recommend eclipses. They're like the dark moon and the full moon for me. Those are days of rest.
Right. There is one coming up this weekend with this. Okay. Thank you so much for your answer.
Sure. My pleasure. Yeah. And also, if you ever get to the point in spellcasting where it just seems like too much bother and you just don't want to do it, it means that you need to take a little rest from spells. That's all. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't want to overdo magic. There's a difference between daily magical practice, which you should be able to get through very easily without a lot of, it should never feel like drudgery. But when you get into a lot of like spell work, where it takes some work and some time and some energy expenditure, if you start thinking, oh, I don't want to do this, it means don't do it. Just let it rest. It's okay. Sometimes you need more time to just integrate all the work that you've done in the past. So it's important to listen to that. Don't just press through on doing a spell if it doesn't feel like you want to do it. If it just doesn't feel good, just don't do it. You can do it next month. There's always another month. There's always another month. You're fine. Everything's fine. So just do, if you want to do, I do recommend that you do daily magical hygiene type work, like what we do, like the purifications. I love the Orb of Light for that, because it covers so much so quickly. But if you have another thing that works better for you, by all means, use it. I like to balance my energy centers every day, that kind of stuff. But I can get through all that. If you do it every day, it only takes a few minutes. It's no big deal. But with the spell work, if you're all fired to go and you really can't wait to do it, that's a good sign to do it. If it's like, ugh, I don't have the right candles. I don't feel like doing it without candles. I want the candles. Then just don't do it. Put it on the back burner. You can do it next time. No big deal. Okay. Anybody else have some questions or comments?
Ariel, this is Gypsy again.
Hi.
I have a question more on the magical hygiene. It is somewhat new to me.
Yes.
I'm having an issue with the Orb of Light meditation, where I'm pulling the energy up from the earth and it's coming up off the top of my head. It creates a sensation that's not painful by any means, but just irritating.
Can you describe the sensation?
It's like a strong, like somebody's poking me in the top of the head, but not really. It's very just like an intense.
Okay.
on the very
Try
crown of my skull.
try working with it more gently. See if when you're
Alright.
when you're doing the showering, you might be pushing energy through, and you don't want to do that. You want it to just be real nice. It should feel like a massage, just
Okay.
real easy. And if it, make it feel like just like little feathers are massaging your scalp, and the energy is just like little feathers of light, and it's just really gentle and nothing major. And
Alright.
you might want to pull less energy up from the earth too. You might want to see what if you can just turn down the volume of that. You might be going at it too hard.
Alright, that I probably am, because I am visualizing it coming very forcefully from the earth, so
Oh yeah, let it be just part of your breathing. Let it feel like no harder than what you breathe, how you breathe. So you want a nice deep full breath, but it's not you're not blowing the energy out. You're just letting it go through just gently and easily. Try that for a week and see if that doesn't help it. If not, let me know and we'll troubleshoot it. But yeah,
Thank
it
you
should
very
never
much.
you never want it to feel uncomfortable.
Alright.
Sure. Yeah, good question. Anybody else? I have not been looking at the chat. If there's questions on there, you'll have to let me know because I don't know what it says. Okay, so this is going to be a nice week for you. I think you'll have something to work on that's real positive. Um, don't overload yourself with homework. I didn't give you a ton of homework. It's just the homework basically is to just continue working with your daily meditations. Do your waning moon flip for the rest of this waning moon. At least do it once or twice if you can. But if you can do it for the rest of the week, that would be great. Work with your mirror magic every day if you can. If you don't beat yourself up. It's no big deal, but try to work with it because it's there to get you connected to your power. It's there to get you more keyed into um, your own givingness to yourself. Because if you can, magic, we're doing it for ourselves, but if we don't feel like we deserve anything good, we're not going to give ourselves anything. Or we're gonna unconsciously muck it up, and it'll turn into something weird. So work on this stuff every day. The meditations and the mirror work, I think, can probably do you more good than anything else that I know of. Also, the magical diary is a good thing. It just keeps you honest. It keeps you grounded. It keeps you focused. Don't worry about writing a novel. When I do if you were to look at my magical diary, it would be so boring. It would, it's just like yoga, Orb of Light. pulled a tarot card. It said blah blah blah. Basically, that's it, And then if I do a spell that day, there's more, there's obviously more stuff in there because I'll put down the ingredients that I used. I'll put down, what the time of day was, the day of the week. That'll be more involved. But I don't do a spell every day. I never do a spell every day. That's too much work. I like to do 1 or 2 spells a month. I'll do one usually banishing spell a month, and I might do 1 or 2 waxing moon spells at the most. And some months I don't do any. And that's okay. Especially if your life is getting so awesome that you don't have time for all of that. Because all your other spells came true, so you don't have time for all that. So don't overload yourself. Less is more. Slowly is holy. A light touch. It should be fun. You should be enjoying yourself. Look at the results you're getting. You're getting some results. So look at the results you're getting. If the results are violent and icky, it's because you're being mean to yourself. So get more into your mirror work. Get more into your orb of light. Be more gentle with yourself. Laugh a little bit more. Be more loving and kind to yourself. Because it's not magic that's being mean to you. It's you that's being mean to you. All right. Well, then, unless anybody has any other questions, I will end the call. So this is it, going once. You guys are just either really good students or you just don't want to talk. All right, or both. Okay. Well, then let's just close our eyes and take a few deep, relaxing breaths. Seeing ourselves again on top of that beautiful mountain in the center of a circular grove of trees, a golden light moving through all of our mind, body, and aura. And we are so grateful for the time that we've spent together and for all that we are learning about ourselves and about magic and about life in general. We're so grateful to be on this adventure. And together we all say, blessed be. All right. Well, I'm going to unmute. Everybody can say bye, and we'll see you next week. Hang on. Here it comes. Bye. Thank you. We'll see you next week. Blessed be.